Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video today, I'm going to talk a little about soul pieces, soul fragments, where they go, what they look like, how to find them, all these kinds of things. So if you've watched my previous videos, or at least a few of them, you know that I sort of differentiate between fragmentation, so when one of your soul pieces leaves on its own, versus soul stealing, so when someone else is stealing these pieces of you. So what the soul fragments hold is a kind of memory and emotion or sensation. So for example, if you felt overwhelming sadness in a past life or even earlier in your current life, you may have fragments of this part of you so that you sort of lost the ability to feel sadness. So a couple emotions that I don't think we have the ability to kind of lose are anger and fear, because these things are more of like survival instincts than actual sort of emotions. So like there's no anger or fear on the other side when we cross over after we die, because these things are really more based in like our survival mechanisms. So as far as finding these lost soul pieces, what they contain is a sort of energy, a piece of your soul that has left the present moment so that you are no longer in touch with it or able to feel it or sort of utilize it. So the earth is sort of like a hub of energy. So, you know, you can live the earth, whether you live in the future or in the past. So time is not linear, right? So we can have parallel realities, we can have alternate realities, parallel timelines, things like that, where sort of anything is possible and can happen within these timelines, and we can sort of reincarnate into different time periods. We don't just incarnate into the future, we can incarnate into the past, or sort of like relive a life in a different sort of parallel universe type of thing. Parallel universe is not really a good word, it's more like a alternate timeline, but the Earth, regardless, is still like the energy hub for the timelines lived on Earth. So even if you lived in like a different timeline on the Earth, it would still be connected to the Earth. So you would still be able to gather all of the pieces from every timeline, because the Earth is sort of like the central hub of the energy. It's not going to go somewhere random, it's still connected to sort of like the Earth's climate, energy, I don't know how to describe it. But so what I'm trying to say is that the pieces that you've lost while incarnated on this planet are still going to be on Earth. They're still going to be in this sort of like central hub of energy that the Earth is. So if you want to try an exercise to find some of your soul pieces, you can sort of think of the last time you were like really strangely drawn to something. Like for example, maybe you're really drawn to like the Victorian royalty or time period or things like that. So maybe there's a soul piece of you left in that sort of time period from another life. So you can try to sort of experiment and see if you can sort of find a few and see if you feel different. The thing about this is if you do have entity attachments or any kind of negative attachments, it probably won't really be as easy or maybe even possible, because these things sort of get in the way of you being able to travel freely in your mind, because they're sort of blocking off the energy. So I have other videos on how to clear yourself. There's lots of ways to do it. There's not just one way of doing it, but that's a method that I find is helpful for people. So I will link that video below. And then the other thing about the soul fragments that I also wanted to touch on is, so it's sort of like an earthbound soul. So if I'm saying that, you know, within every sort of timeline, there's still these soul pieces in the same energetic location on in this like hub that is like the Earth. So there's all the timelines and different and alternate realities that sort of converge into a single point, which is the Earth, because they're all associated with the Earth. So in that way, there are earthbound souls who are aware of themselves, and there are sort of like soul fragments that are not aware of themselves. So the soul fragments that are not aware of themselves would be like the fragmentations, or like soul pieces that you have lost, or anyone has lost. So these can sort of become aware of themselves and then cross over, but more likely what'll happen is they'll sort of just stay there until they're retrieved by the person who lost them, and, you know, brought back into the current moment, into like the present with the rest of like the consciousness. So so the soul fragments that are not aware of themselves because they've been fragmented, they're sort of stuck in this single moment in time, is that they're reliving the loop of that moment that they're sort of like stuck in, and they keep reliving it until they are pulled back to the rest of the consciousness, or like the present, the current moment. So that's why certain events or situations can make you feel like it feels really familiar, almost like you're experiencing that trauma. So for example, if you were like mugged in a past life and like beat up, and like you suffered like a major shock, and a piece of your soul may still be in that timeline because it's shocked, it's terrified, so it could still be stuck in that timeline. So let's say you're watching a TV show, and the same thing happens to someone on the TV show where they get like beaten and mugged or whatever. So now you feel like this weird feeling of like this has almost like happened to you, or like it feels like it really like deeply kind of bothers you. So the reason that you feel that is because the soul piece of you that happened to in, you know, a past life, or maybe even in this life, is still reliving that loop. So you're remembering when that happened to you because you're still reliving it in a different timeline, in probably a past life, if not this current life. So earthbound souls, so the souls that don't cross over, are different because they're aware of themselves. So they realize that they are not stuck in like a certain timeline. They're sort of aware that they're no longer alive. Sometimes they choose not to cross over for various reasons that aren't as relevant to this video. But that's why, you know, if you visit like a certain location, like maybe you feel really drawn to like ancient Egypt or something. If you go to Egypt and, you know, visit the pyramids and things like that, you may feel this like warm, magical, almost nostalgic feeling if there's a soul fragment or a soul piece from that time period that's still there. So the other interesting thing is that these soul pieces can sort of be all over the Earth or its energy grids, and you'll be able to pick them up based on feeling drawn to them and feeling this like magical feeling towards it. And it may not be exactly historically accurate. Like, for example, maybe you feel really drawn to the movie like Peter Pan or something, but it's not because that's the reality. It could be that you were watching that movie when something happened and a soul piece left at that moment to infinitely watch that movie over and over because it made it feel comforted. Or maybe you were like a pirate or like something like that. So any kind of thing can trigger it. The key is to sort of be aware of when you feel drawn to something, and then investigate that feeling further to see if you can pull that piece back into your current reality. And what happens when you reintegrate these fragments or pieces of the soul that have been sort of scattered throughout lifetimes is you start to feel like a sensation of having more energy, sort of the power, you feel the growth, and then life sort of starts to feel more like a dream, because when you're integrating these different pieces of yourself, things don't feel so cold and harsh because it's like an expansion of the consciousness and its awareness, so you feel more whole, and when you feel whole inside, that's reflected back at you from the outside world, so everything starts to feel more like a dream. So I hope this video was helpful and made sense. If you have any comments or anything, leave it below, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.